friends, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a long arm quilter, and here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. So today I have another large stack of quilts, and you're going to want to stick around to see these. I have Holt patterns, I have Sloan patterns, some really fun quilts this week, and I also have updates on my temperature quilt. So let's get started. So today I have finished my May block for the cottage temperature quilt. So this is a free pattern put out by the Fat Quarter Shop, and I love this temperature quilt. If you're familiar with temperature quilts, not something I've been interested in the past, but when they put it into houses, then you have my attention. So I am using all Essex linen on mine. New experience using Essex linen. It does shrink. You spraying it with Best Press and then pressing it out so that those blocks shrink up prior to my stitching. So I have the May block done, and May does have 31 days, and any month that there is a 31st day, then you also get to make one of the cute little trees that go next to it. So let me show you my May block. So the temperatures this month have all been in the 70s to low 80s. The pink ones down below, those are getting into the high 80s. So we had 3 days right there in a row that we had some high 80s here in Indiana. But other than that, it's been 70s and low 80s, and very pleasant for May, and even the start of June's kind of been that same way. So all Essex linens. I do plan on adding some this is May, so little Ellie May was born on May the 2nd, and I am planning on putting a pink heart or something. Haven't decided whether I'll do embroidery or do an applique there, but that's all stuff that can be added later, and so I do plan on doing that once I at least have the rows together. I'll go back and do that. It's not a big deal at that point. So really fun, really enjoying this. So this will go at next to my April block, and I had planned on joining them and then didn't get that done. Actually, I was quilting this or piecing this, and the first time I did it I had the whole thing upside down, so you can even tell along the bottom where I had to pull out stitches, and I already had the side part on it too. So what I did is I picked it up to the point where it matched the chimney, and then picked it across there, flipped the whole thing over, sewed it across the chimney again, and then just finished that seam down the side. So there is a little bit of a sashing strip that goes here, and then that will join with the April block. I kind of like the variety in the April block a little bit more than the May block. The May it almost feels fallish with the yellows and the oranges. So we'll see in the whole scheme of things. You know, looking at the pattern, their color schemes for those mid-warm months are the yellows and the oranges, you know, and then you'll get into more reds and things when we get into the hotter months. In Indiana, usually we'll be in the 90s quite a bit of the summer. So I will be getting into some more pinkish and some reddish colors as we move through the summer, but so kind of a bland block, but really pretty. Really enjoying this. All right, that is my personal sewing for this week. I have so many customer quilts that it's really going to take up the entire remainder of this video just to get through all these quilts, so I want to get to them quickly. So here is the first pattern. So this first quilt is by Dawn, and this is Lori Holt. Lori Holt to perfection. This is so fun. So this was called Potluck Stars, and this was a quilt kit that was put out by Riley Blake. You can still find some of these, especially on Etsy. You might check your local quilt store as well, but this was put out as a boxed kit, so it comes with a a really cute box that matches the pattern, so a fun keepsake in itself if you can still find that. But all cookbook fabrics, which are all Lori Holt fabrics. This is done as applique, so the stars, the Potluck stars in here, these are done with applique. You're joining the pieces here, and I would almost bet, I've not seen the pattern, but and I really don't know. I don't know if this is done, they are applique, but I have not seen the pattern itself to know whether you're doing squares of each one and then putting a template. I don't think there's a template, so the pattern somehow has you joining these stars. I don't know specifics. There are large ones, and then you can see the small ones around the border, and then they are appliqued onto the backing, this background fabric. So what Dawn has done, she has done all the applique. It does appear to me like it's using Lori Holt's method, where you use the foundation or the interfacing as your foundation, and you're flipping it around. So you're laying your foundation, you're laying your interfacing on top of your fabric, right sides up, you're stitching on those lines and then flipping it around. At least the edges are that way. I doubt the whole block is that way, the way it's seamed. So I'm really not sure how this is put together. But once Dawn did the applique, then she did just a very skinny stitch right along the edge, just maybe, you know, a 1/16 of an inch on the edge, inside edge of that applique. And that's how it's all applique down, all done by machine, all done in one thread color, like a white thread on every one of them. So you do have the large ones. These are very large stars. I would say the background print right here is probably 20 inches at least. It's a good size. So you have 4 of those, and then all around on the all around the border you have the smaller ones, and those are so cute. This will make a great table runner, in even just the smaller ones to have down the middle of a table. So all cookbook prints, so and all vintage, what you would seen in your grandmother's kitchen, and so that you have dishes, and you can see even on the backing that's the teacup, and the sugar pot is the fabric motif on the backing. So very, very pretty. So sashing in between the big blocks, then the pink sashing, and then you do have a 9 patch creating the cornerstones of the sashing there. So very, very pretty. So for the pantograph, we chose Julie Hurt's Cottonwood, and this is a pattern that matches up very nicely, very similar to an orange peel or something like that. It's all the flowers, but 6-petal flower. They do alternate, meaning that the flowers aren't right on top of each other, so the rows are offset, and it does do 2 rows at a time. And it's very interesting how Julie programmed this one, because it's not doing one flower and then moving on to do the next flower. She really does a progression of arcs, and so she'll do an arc from this feather over this flower down to this one, creating one of the petals of this one, and then back up, and it's a very flowy movement in the ways that she's programmed. So very nice. But it does stitch out 2 rows at a time, and each one of those rows is offset a little bit so the flowers aren't stacked on top of each other. So I did use a white thread. All of the border print, this is a white, it's a low volume. It has a little bit of the blue cross stitch in it, and then just the tiniest little red cherries there. The background is set, you know, a lot of Lori's prints are set on a cloud background color. This one has a little more of a white feel, and so the white thread blends in really well. With the busyness of Lori's fabrics and the brightness of Lori's fabrics, the white is a perfect choice. It's not too bright for her fabrics that she has. So very, very pretty. This one measures 66 by 66, so it is square. Now, like I said, this came as a kit. Now this is being brought out as just a pattern, and the pattern itself is called Hometown Stars. And in looking at Fat Quarter Shop's website, that is to be released in July. So you'll be able to get just the pattern. But as of right now, the way to get this is as a kit, and it's sold in that cute decorative box, a keepsake in its own right. So very, very pretty. Classic Lori Holt design and fabrics, and just very, very pretty. Binding, I think it'd be really pretty with a red binding, you know, with a print like this, just as the, you know, to really block off that white around the edges, and really to give it a frame, and really pretty. Or even a pink would be a really pretty one too. So this is Dawn's quilt, and she'll be getting this back this week. My second quilt today is also a Lori Holt pattern. This comes from her Sew Your Stash series. So this is Linda's quilt, and Linda followed Lori's tutorial on her YouTube channel. So if you go to Lori's YouTube channel and go under playlist, there is a whole playlist that is just Sew Your Stash, where Lori talks about cutting your scraps, how to store your scraps, and then how to use those different sizes of scraps that you save to create quilt tops. So this one is Sew Your Stash series number 16. I will link directly to the video, but just understand that there is a whole host of Sew Your Stash series that you can use all your scraps. So this is number 16 in that series. And this one is called Spare Squares Block. And the reason is this can all be done as leaders and enders projects. So you see right here we have probably 6-inch square, I would assume. Just going off, looks like a 6-inch square, but each 6-inch square is made from a smaller 4-square unit. You can see right here 2 light prints and 2 colored prints. Then you have a light print, and then you have a 4-square. So the 4 squares are on the corners, and those corners are facing towards the middle, with 1 darker square in the middle, and then all of the other low volume prints around the outside. So that's your block right there. And this can all be, especially these 4 squares right here, can be done as leaders and enders projects. So leaders and enders, why do you need leaders and enders? So a lot of times before I knew about leaders and enders, I was just using a spare piece of fabric to run underneath my needle, so that there was always some piece of fabric under my needle. If you've ever started your machine with nothing under there, you know how a lot of times your bobbin thread will pull that top thread to the bottom real quick, and you get like that bird's nest underneath your first little bit of fabric. There is a little bit of tension issues right at the beginning, first from that, but also just keeping your stitches even when you're first starting a piece of fabric is a little difficult. So by using either a scrap of fabric or leaders and enders, you can keep that tension consistent moving through underneath your needle. So as whatever block you're working on goes through, you don't have something else to put under there. Maybe you're strip piecing, you know, or you're doing a succession of blocks, but you get to the last one. Instead of clipping those threads, what you can do is either grab just a scrap of fabric and run that through there, so that that piece of fabric then keeps that tension through all of the, you know, to your next piece of material. Or the other thing that I learned from Lori, was using leaders and enders. So having these little tiny squares next to your sewing machine, knowing that you're going to use these in a project like this, and you grab one low volume, you grab one colored one, and you run those under your sewing machine instead of just a scrap fabric. So it's a great way. And you're making a bonus project, as Lori calls them. You're making a bonus project at the same time you're working on another quilt top. You're not wasting thread by pulling out. You're not having tension issues. You're using up all the scraps that you have too as well. So it's just a great project. A lot of fun to do it this way. So I tend to keep muffin tins with little pieces like this. I keep 1.5-inch squares. That may be what these are. I haven't watched the video in quite a while to know. But you can go watch that video to get all of the measurements that you need. There's no pattern to buy. You just watch that tutorial and you'll get everything you need from that. But a leaders and enders projects, and what's so neat is when you put this all together, so one of your pieced blocks is paired next to a low volume block, and then you just alternate those, and then you get that Irish chain look to this quilt when you put it all together. So great bonus project. So this is Linda's quilt, and she said she used a mixture of all of Lori Holt's lines, including all of them. So, you know, you've got larger prints. I love, if you can see this, how she's done some of the bolder prints there. So it is a low volume. It's a white background, but kind of stands out and makes a statement there. I love that. And so all different lines, all the different ones that she's had. It's so fun. A great way if you've done any of the of her sew-alongs and you have extra fabric left over. It's a great way to use it. Now the backing fabric, I love this. This is such a nice complement to the front. This is also a Lori Holt design. This is one of her bee backings. This is done in honey color, and this is called bandana. So it has some stars, it has some flowers. This is done, that's honey color, so a yellow color, and then the print of it is in browns and in whites. So just a very pretty. I love this, how it complements the front. I think this is very cute. Then for the pantograph, we chose what's called Flower Child. And I, again, think this is a really cute. This one, I like this design. It nests well without any seams or any points that have to be matched up. So it stitches out fairly easy. It nests up together really well. It's just a really cute design. So a 5-petal flower, and it's really loops. They're large loops. There's not a you know, the center is made from those loops, and then it just swirls out and goes to the next one. It does do it in kind of a diagonal pattern, but it's only doing one row at a time. But the diagonal then gives it a place to nest with the next row below it. We did use a white thread on this one, again, because all of these fabrics, there's a lot of white background here. And also Lori's prints are bright, and so a white thread is not going to overpower those white a white thread is not going to overpower the colors on her in her fabrics. They're very bright and cheery and fun anyway. So love this. This one measures 66 by 72, but obviously you're using scraps. You could make this as large or as small as you want. This would make a great table runner as well. A cute baby quilt, I think, too. So depending on how many squares you put together is how large or small the quilt would be. So Linda did a really nice job on this one. And now we move on to Susan's sampler quilt. So this is Thimbleberries. Do you remember Thimbleberries? Thimbleberries, Lynette, Jensen is really where I learned to quilt, learned to sew, and these are her fabrics. This is her pattern. So it is a sampler quilt, so every block is different. Lots of stars. Sampler quilts are a great practice. If you're new to quilting and you just want to learn different blocks, want to learn how to piece different things, a sampler block, and that's what it was originally meant to be anyway, was a learning process. And so it's a great way, find some coordinating fabrics, find a coordinating line, get different blocks and put them all together. So each block is different, and then each one has a sashing around it. This is a little bit of a mottled, it's not a solid color. It's got a little bit of a beige on a cream background print. And then so each one is sashed, and then you have the sashing between those blocks as well. And this is a green. Again, it's a little bit of a shaded one, almost like a grunge, but not quite. So just a little bit of a mottled. So each one is different. Thimbleberries was known for her pinks and some purples you can see up there. Just the different colors. This is very classic Thimbleberries. Really, really pretty. Love her greens. I love her deep greens in there. For the backing fabric, Susan chose just a white muslin and a muslin print. I love this, especially for a classic quilt. Instead of trying to match the backing fabric, especially to fabrics that you might have had for a very long time. Susan said she probably pieced this in 2005, 2006, something like that. So finding a matching fabric for your backing can be difficult because a lot of those fabrics aren't around anymore. So to go with a muslin, or even just I talked about the primitive muslin that's out. It's a really nice fabric as well. A little more a cotton feel, just a little smoother, slicker, cool feel to it, and I really like it. So, and it really shows off quilting. So pretty. So this is the citrine pantograph. We did use this on the last quilt that I did for Susan as well, and she loved it so much she said, let's do it again. Very classic feather design. And then it does a couple swirls. The swirls are big and chunky, no points at any point. So just a really nice complement to a sampler quilt. It kind of gives the hint to the past with just a little bit of newer freshness to it. We did use a cream color thread on this one. The fabrics on the front are more of a cream color, so the cream blends in really well. The backing fabric's a little lighter than the front, but still a cream color, so the cream blends in really well and just provides all that texture all over the backing. Really, really pretty. Really love this. So the sampler itself is 12 blocks, so you could challenge yourself maybe to make a new block each month. Do it in coordinating fabrics. You could do it scrappy. You could pick one line, challenge yourself to make one block a month, and then at the end of the year you could put it together in a sampler and show off your skills for 2024, right? All right, let's move on to the next one. So this is Kathy's quilt, and this quilt is very large. This one measures 86 by 103, and these are all hand-done embroidery. Kathy loves to work on this. I've done several quilts for her. This is what she does in her downtime when she's not outside working in her garden. And so it is the stamped kind of embroidery where she is following the blue lines that are on there. I love this. It's so intricate, so detailed. Every block is the same. It's all purple flowers with the green leaves. It's in a bouquet. And then we also have some purple ribbon around the edge, another flower in each of the corners of the block. Connected by those purple ribbons. Just so pretty. And this is also 12 blocks, so you could challenge yourself if this is something you want to do, but this time you're doing the same block each month, so one block a month. And then she has joined purple sashing in between all of the blocks. Again, these are very large blocks. I would guess these are 16, 18 inches block size. She has purple sashing around all of those. And then she's done a couple of more borders. So I love this purple print that she's chosen, this floral. It's got a little bit of a gold to it. She's done that as a border all the way around, and then a very large outside border. I mean, this is probably a good 10 inches, 8-10 inches wide in the border. So very pretty. Again, for the backing fabric on this one, she chose a white, and that matches the white background of the embroidery block, so very nice. And it shows off the quilting. We did use a white thread on this one, again because we've got the white background of the blocks and then the white backing fabric as well, so white was the obvious choice. It does show up the quilting on the purple very nicely, and I think this is a great addition to this quilt. It gives a lot of interest to those large borders. So this is the espresso pantograph, and this one is lots of swirls, and I felt this one really matched with the ribbons and things that were on the blocks themselves. Lots of swirls. You have a couple large swirls, but each swirl comes back out and there's smaller ones. It does cross over itself, so it gives that ribbon-like effect, which is the exact same thing that is done here on the embroidery that Kathy did also. So you'll also notice on this one, I have not trimmed this up. So last week I showed you some of the tools that I keep in my cart. You can see my cart right back there. One of the things I do when I'm pulling a quilt, taking a quilt off the long arm, is I trim up the edges just with the scissors, and I leave this. Now this backing, I really have not even trimmed it with scissors because that's all that I had left on the sides and on the bottom of this one. So, but it gives the same type of feel, and I'll have another one in a little bit that I'll show you that I still haven't trimmed up yet. But I would trim this with my scissors, so you know, just to get it off the long arm, and so you would have about this much that's left with a little bit of the batting showing out. You can tell, you know, I was cutting it pretty close on this one. And then I will take it in the other room, lay it out on the floor, and trim it up to the edge of the quilt or 1/4 inch, whatever it is that the client prefers, and I will trim up the edges there. But this is what it looks like when I first take it off the long arm prior to trimming it up on the floor. The batting and the backing are still attached there. And I will have in this week's newsletter, I will have some close-up pictures of my process of trimming up quilts on the floor. You'll get to see my rulers laid out, how I trim up the corners. So if you're interested in that, you'll want to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, and you'll see those pictures and a little more information on that this weekend. So this is Kathy's quilt, very, very pretty, and can't wait to get it back to her. My next quilt today, this is Cynthia's quilt, and this quilt measures 56 by 73. This is a Pat Sloan print, or a Pat Sloan pattern, and the pattern is called Sweet Childhood Memories. So it's a free pattern. You can download it. I will link it down below. But this is from Pat Sloan. I love to make quilts.com. You can look it up there if you don't want to go through the link that I've provided. It's done in squares. A really nice pattern laid out, very easy to read, and you can see the final instructions. So she's got all of the blocks. Each block is different, and then she gives you how to do the different sashing in between, because do you see it's not set square? It's like, not that it's not set square, it's not set in even rows. So extra sashing added in parts. I like this. I like the extra blue and black there. So the fabrics are all sewing related fabrics. So these are a Dan Morris print back in 2020. So this is QT Fabrics is the manufacturer of that. So all sewing prints. So we have everything from spools and sewing machines and buttons and just so many things. So very pretty. Let me see if I can get up here a little closer that you can see. So you can see the spools. There's sewing machines, there's pins, all kinds of pins here on this one. Buttons are so pretty. The sewing machine, so right here in the middle, she's this block has all sewing machines. You can see them right here. She's fussy cut the sewing machines to put in this block. 5 different ones. It's so pretty, so fun. And then this one is all buttons block, and it's the star pattern. So it's really fun how Cynthia chose the different fabrics to create the blocks. And then she's done a great job with color to use the turquoise blue. It is a white, it's a low volume white, a little bit of a flower on it. The turquoise just picks up so many of the colors in the buttons really well. And then she's got the black also as an accent. There is some white sashing around the edges here, and then the border is this the border is half square triangle blocks, but when you put them together it creates that diamond effect, almost giving it a flying geese type of look. but these are all half square triangles, just turned the different ways, and it gives you that look. Love how she did the corners as well. And then there is just another skinny little white border. I do like this. It gives those points a place. You're not going to knock off any points in your binding if you're doing it with a sashing like that, so that's really nice. And just a skinny little one, just like a 1.25 inch border all the way around that. The backing fabric is the same as the background fabric on the front, so it is a low volume, has a little bit of butterflies and florals. A nice complement to the front, with the front being so busy and so fun and so many interesting things to look at. It is nice that the backing then is just calm. It's just a peaceful, you let the front be as busy and carry the theme and be all the interest, and then just don't even make the backing compete with it. Just a nice white backing. So for the pantograph, when I sent Cynthia some choices, I said, because the name of the pattern is Sweet Childhood Memories, so kind of makes you think back, you can't go wrong with Baptist fan. And I know there are some people who don't like Baptist fan, others that love it. It's kind of one of those, you either love it or hate it. I tend to love it. I like this one. This pattern is what I feel is very directional, meaning the sewing machines are in one direction. They're not turned different directions. So the quilt is meant, maybe she's going to hang it in her sewing room, I don't know, but it's meant to be looked at this way because the sewing machines are looking at you. They obviously have to be in one direction, where the spools and the threads and such maybe not. But with a Baptist fan, I usually tend to use Baptist fan on something that has a directional, because it is very directional itself. Doesn't have to be, but a lot of times I tend to keep those together. So if the quilt is directional, it's going to be viewed from one way, then I like to use Baptist fan because it is also viewed from one way. It could be done the other way, but obviously you're going to turn the quilt around and notice that it's a Baptist fan. So we did use a cream color thread on this one. The background print here, the white is a little bit of a creamy color, and it does have the it's a low volume, so there is that little bit of screen printing on it. It just has more of a cream feel than even the white fabrics of the Lori Holt ones that we were doing a little bit ago. So just a really nice cream, went really well. These colors are a little darker, so the cream was a little better than a white. A white was going to stand out a little too much on the black, so cream was a good combination of the two. All right, my next quilt is Jan's, and Jan did the Sew Scrappy spools. This is also a Lori Holt pattern. She has used Lori Holt backing fabric background for all of the sashing, and it looks like a lot of the other prints are things that she had from her stash, which was the whole point of this this quilt along, was to use what you had from your stash. And so all the spool tops and bottoms are a brown print, but what I love about Jan's quilt is she did not just go by the pattern. And it's a great pattern, and I did mine just like the pattern, but I love it when clients take a pattern and they create it and make it their own. So Jan did a lot of improvised blocks for her own that she wanted to add in, and let me just show you some of these. So she's got the typical ones, the heart and the flag, some of the square and square ones and those, but look at this. She did this cute little birdhouse block right there, and that's pieced. That is not fussy cut. That is pieced. Tiny little pieces for the birdhouse, or bird feeder, I guess I want to say. She did a little cat sitting right next to it, like the cat's watching that bird feeder. She did a cute little house block. She's just done so many different ones. This one was not in the original pattern. This is like a string quilt type of design is what she's done. So the same size block as what was done, you know, in all of them, but she's done it more in a string quilt where you're doing different sizes of strips across on a diagonal. What else? She did the tulip blocks. Oh, there's a barn one right here. Let me pull this over. Here's a barn block that she did, and again, this is a pieced block. This is not fussy cut at all. So little doors and the big hay window at the top. Right next to that, she has a bow tie block, and these were not in the original one, I don't believe, is either. But she's done the 4 square and then done the patch in the middle, and she has several of those blocks. She also has some, like right here. This is almost improvised quilting is what it looks like. Is she has joined different fabrics together and then cut it on that size. She has other blocks that are just one whole. If there's a fabric that you like, just create the whole fabric be your spool block. She's done that over here as well with this floral print. Very pretty. This is another block that she did, so I like this one. Just a square here, a couple rectangles, and then more rectangles across the bottom. So I love that she took the pattern and then improvised with ones that she liked. Again, look at this ray of sun. It looks like a green in the corner, and then the rays coming out. Very pretty. She's done a great job. Just really done a really nice job of adding her own touches into this quilt, using the blocks that she liked from the original pattern, but then adding in her own blocks that she wanted and liked. So all the little cornerstones are there, and then she did use a Lori Holt print for her sashing and for her border. The backing fabric is a bee background. This is done in a blue and brown plaid. Very pretty. A really nice complement. The colors in the brown here and the plaid match the brown in the spools that she has there. So for the pantograph, we went with Christie's Crop Circles, and this is one that I've used several times in the last couple months. I like it. I just really like it. It kind of has that same feel of a Baptist fan without being as directional as a Baptist fan is. It gives a circular without any floral, but it gives a lot of texture, and I just really like the circular feel on this spools quilt because everything is very blocky, it kind of feels like, but I didn't feel with Jan's choices of fabrics that it necessarily needed a floral. I didn't feel that that was the best thing. So did this Christie's Crop Circles, and I really like it. And so the thread color is also a white. There is a lot of white background prints behind the spools and in the borders and in the sashing, and then with the backing fabric too is also more of a white base, and so did use a white thread on this one. And with the bright prints and everything, I felt that was the best choice. Didn't want to dim the white background prints at all. So really like this. So if you like this So Scrappy spools, the pattern is still available in Fat Quarter Shop. I do still need to long arm quilt mine, and it's in, I'm going to add it to my queue so that I can fit it in there. I love this. Would like to get it done. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this beautiful quilt is Nancy's. This is a laundry basket quilt. So Edyta Sitar is the designer of this. All the fabrics are Edyta Sitar's as well. Absolutely beautiful. So this one measures 74 by 74, and you'll notice in the layout you have one center block that is a star here in the center, and then there are smaller blocks all the way around it. So you can either look at this as 9 blocks across the top, 3 rows of those, 9 rows in a block, 3 rows of those, 9 blocks in a row, 3 rows of those at the bottom. Or you can look at this as each set of 9 blocks makes a square. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blocks that then make up the same size block as this. So all of these are smaller. From what I can tell, there's usually 2 or 3 of the same kind of block created. So like this block right here, you'll have 3 of those, 2 or 3 of them scattered throughout the quilt. Or like this one right here with the flying geese units. I know there are 3 of those scattered throughout the quilt. So this is a pattern that you can buy, and then you can buy the fabric separately if you want to. The pattern is called Lady Tulip. All of the fabrics are called Lady Tulip fabrics as well. But a neat thing that Edyta Sitar does is that they actually create a pre-cut quilt kit. So not just a quilt kit with your fabrics in it, but every piece is pre-cut so that all you have to do is open up the box, read your directions, and start sewing. So especially with a quilt this big and a lot of smaller pieces, that is just an incredible thing. So if you just don't enjoy the cutting so much, but you want to just get to piecing, then that would be the perfect thing to do. So the backing fabric is a very it's a white print with just a tiny little leaflet there. Very nice as well. Really like that. So all of the squares, the smaller squares, are all set off by this gray polka dot sashing. The gray polka dots are like a little bit of a gold leaf-like look to them. And then you have these little gold cornerstones between all the smaller ones. I like the larger block in that it has this square and a square design with the white around the outside and that same polka dot gray on the inside of it. So just absolutely beautiful. Great piecing. Nancy did a great job with all of her piecing, and just absolutely love this quilt. Very traditional Edyta Sitar look to it. If you like this look, if you're a laundry basket quilts fan, then you're going to love this quilt as well. There is a border around the edge. This large floral, it's actually a large tulip because of the name Lady Tulip. So a large floral around there, and that print is also repeated in several of the blocks, and especially in the middle of the star in the center block. For the pantograph, we chose lemon peel, and lemon peel is I would say more of a not necessarily floral. I mean, although it kind of looks floral, it's more of a, what I'd say, more like a petal print. So I don't see a flower so much. To me, when I look at it, I see more of the 3 petals, and I'll try to get it in here with the white. So you have the 3 petals. They're really just loops, but they overlap, so it gives like that overlapping look of petals on a flower, and then it comes out from that one and does 3 more. I really like this one. It's a very subtle, not overly floral, not overly busy. It's just a very simple, delicate pantograph. I think it goes very well with this quilt top because the quilt top has so many blocks in it, so many colors, so many designs going on, that just a simple pantograph really looked nice on this one. Did use a cream color thread on this one. The backing is more of a cream color than a white, and the colors on this they're just a little more muted, more so than the Holt fabrics that we used earlier. So just a little more muted tone, not tremendously, but just a little bit. And so the cream color really works really well. And a lot of the background prints are a cream or the gray. You can see a lot of gray in the quilt. A lot of the sash, all of the sashing is gray. I didn't want to do a gray. I felt gray was going to be a little too dark for the quilt, especially with the cream color backing. I didn't like gray for that. But the cream color just is really nice. Actually, the pantograph itself on the front, you'd have to look pretty close to see it just because the quilt is so busy, but it adds a lot of texture on the back. And again, just a very simple, but just very calming pantograph to go along with this quilt. So if you are a Tulip fan, or if you are a laundry basket quilts fan, you will want to pick this one up, especially the kit would be a great thing to try. All right, I have 2 quilts by Debbie. Debbie's first quilt is the Exploding Heart quilt. This is a pattern by Slice of Pie Quilts. This one does measure 72 by 72, and Debbie has done hers all in Tula pink fabric. So Exploding Heart pattern is done all in squares. So even the open white spaces that you see around the edge, this is all done in squares. So it's laid out that way. This is not one piece of background print. This is all squares. So all about probably 4-inch squares, 3-inch squares, something like that. And it's all done in squares. So that's how you can get all of the different splurts of color of the exploding heart going out everywhere. The middle part is done with so a block is right here, and it's the you know, the hourglass unit, I guess, if you want to say. I can't recall the name of the block right off the top of my head, but where you have 4 different patterns, but they're all coming together in the hourglass type unit. So this is one block right here, and so all done in squares. Really, really cute. So the fabric is Neon by Tula Pink, and it's done in her classic colors of neon, of Tula's classic colors of the bright pinks, the purples, the oranges, and the mint green. So this fabric line is called Neon, and Neon is a set of polka dots, and it's a set of stripes, and then it's a set of the bird star print, each done in a different colorway. So you have the blue colorway, you have the orange colorway, the purple and the pink and the green and the blue, and then all done together. But it's just really those four or five. So polka dot, bird stars, and stripes. So maybe just 3, but then it's done in all of the different colorways. So just very bright, very classic Tula Pink if you enjoy her fabrics. The background print is also a Tula Pink. The background, all of the low volume, if you want to call it, this is as low volume in Tula Pink as you're going to get. So it's a white background, but it has all the colors printed on it, and it's the same bird star print that you would have in the bigger parts up here, but it's scaled down for a background print. So it's the white, and this has the same color scheme, but just done on that white background. And this does come, this one has a white background. There are ones that have like a cream color background with the colors on it. There are several different choices, so you'll want to go check those out if you are making something or want to use this one. So this is called Fairy Dust, and you can kind of see the colors in there. So from a distance, it does give the look of a low volume. I mean, a little bit of splatters of color, but you're seeing the heart. And then when you get in closer, though, you see all of the colors that Tula Pink is known for. The backing fabric, then, this is called the Parisville Déjà Vu, and this is the fans one. So you can see all the little fans done in the same colorways. You've got the stripes that were on the front, repeated in some of the fans, and then just solid colors in the others. Very directional print, all running up and down. We did piece this with a vertical seam down the middle, and then made sure we oriented it with the quilt top, the heart on the front, up and down, as well as the fans on the back going up and down. So this quilt, like I mentioned earlier, I had one more that I hadn't trimmed up yet, so I did cut it off the long arm, meaning that this one had a lot more backing fabric attached on either side of it. And so I just cut using my scissors outside of the pantograph area, and the rest of that goes back to the client. And then what I'll do is I'll lay this out on the floor, and then I'll trim it up square. Make sure the corners are square and trimming up the sides. So sometimes that does mean you might see a little bit of backing, or a little bit of the batting, depending on how square, trying to square up the quilt. Sometimes you get a little bit of the backing, the batting but it'll be caught up in your binding strips. You're not going to see that part. To get it square, sometimes you'll have to cut into the backing a little bit. It just depends. I mean, you're just trying to get it square. I try not to cut off any points. Sometimes that's a challenge. and do the best you can. I mean, nobody's, again, we're too picky on ourselves. I don't want to just sit and pick a quilt to death. When you hand it to somebody as a gift, don't point out all the flaws. Let them see the overall design. Be proud of what you did, and don't tear yourself down. You know, you should be very proud of what you do. And Debbie's quilt is fine. I wasn't saying that meaning hers was in any way flawed at all. Hers is perfectly fine. She did a really nice job. Everything is squared up, and then I will trim the backing off of this once I'm done with the video. For the pantograph, I did choose a new one with this one, so I gave her several different choices, and this is one. The pattern is, again, so busy, and it is a directional because you're going to look at the heart one direction, but I just didn't feel, I gave her several choices, but I found this one called Willow Leaf Sashiko. I did offer a Sashiko that looks very similar to these fans. That one would have been nice. This Sashiko is more like a twirl, almost like a spinner, and I don't know how well you can see it. You can see it a little bit there. So almost like a spinner, or like one of those fidget spinner type things, or a top that would spin on the ground. And I thought this one was a good one just because the heart, you know, the whole theme of the quilt is exploding heart. So it's kind of like bursting out. And I kind of see that with this pantograph as well. It's kind of a burst, or a firework, or an explosion in some ways. So this one does print, or does stitch out one row at a time, and it's almost like a puzzle piece. It nests up with the row above it in order to create that spinning effect. So let me trace the line here so you can kind of see where it's going. Let me pull it up here for you. Okay, so I'll just start right here. So it comes up and it does a little point for this spinner right here, and then it dips down, and then it does another spinner. So each line that it's creating is creating the bottom of one spinner and creating the top of the next, of the one below it at the same time. So it swoops down, then swoops up, comes to a point, then it spins up and does the left side of that one, and then it comes up and does the top or the bottom of the other one. So, you know, it's the same line. That's the left for one is the right for the one beside it, if that makes sense. And so it's almost like puzzle pieces, the way they're fitting in together. We did this one probably like 5 inches. I didn't want to make it too tight. There is so much going on with this quilt. Really wanted the quilting just be secondary on this one. You got so many bright prints. The pattern is very busy with the exploding theme to it, and so the pantograph was really just in the background of this one. Did use a white color thread. All of these background prints, this is the white of this background print, and white was perfect for this one. On the back, again, the fabric is so busy that the white blends in, the pantograph blends in. You really probably see the pantograph better on the front on this one than you actually do on the back. It's just, again, it's classic Tula pink. So she carries the colors and the theme, everything in her fabrics. And so any quilt that you're making with her fabrics, they are going to be the star of the show. I mean, they are going to be what you notice, and the quilting is really just secondary on these. So this one, I don't know if I mentioned, this one does measure 72 by 72, so a really nice size quilt. That's the only size that the pattern comes in, and I have linked that down below if that's a pattern that you are interested in. All right, I have a second one by Debbie. Debbie's second quilt is the Moda Modern Building Blocks quilt. I had so many incredible quilts this week. I know many of you watch the video and then you'll put in the comments your favorite one for this week. I don't know how you're going to pick, because between Lori Holt and Laundry Basket and Pat Sloan and now this one by Moda, I don't know how you're going to pick. Good luck, because they are all just incredible quilts. So this one is a very large quilt, 84 by 96. I love, love, love this quilt. This is a modern, what I would say a modern sampler. So it's not set in the straight lines like we saw earlier with the sashing. This is different size blocks, but again, you're learning different blocks as you're putting it together. So you have some smaller blocks here, you have medium ones down here, you have very large blocks up here, and then the combination of putting them all together in more of a puzzle piece type of setting. It's not your traditional block, sashing. It's all blended very well together, and I just love. My favorite thing about this quilt was when it was quilting out. It was on the Longarm over here, which is the first one I see when I walk into the room. And so this one would stitch out very long, and so it would be running for 10 minutes or so. And I would hear it stop. I would come back into the room, and you could see the texture of where the pantograph had stitched out and then the part that wasn't stitched out. And every time I walked in, I just loved it. It is such a transformation. This was a beautiful quilt prior to quilting, but once it was quilted, and just seeing that progression of it moving down the quilt, you know, the part that was stitched and the part that was unstitched, it was lovely. I should have taken a picture of it, because every time I walked into the room, I just loved the pantograph and how it was stitching out and the texture it was creating and how it was just enhancing the whole quilt top. I just absolutely loved it. The fabrics in this one are all Bella solids, so no modeling effect at all. This is, you know, true colors, and just love all the different colors. Just so pretty. I mean, you have traditional, or you have, you know, primary colors of your yellows and greens and blues, but then you have the turquoises and the sages and the limes and the, you know, sunshine yellows, and just you know, some muted oranges, and it's just so pretty. So again, if you not so much of a traditional quilter, if you lean a little more toward the modern edge, I kind of run the whole gamut. I kind of like a little bit of everything. But if you're learning to piece and you're wanting to learn different types of blocks, you're not wanting to do a quilt that has the same block over and over, where instead you want to learn to piece different types of blocks and different techniques, then this would be a great one, and in a little more of a modern setting than what we saw earlier. So just absolutely beautiful. The backing fabric, this is a butterfly print. This is 108-inch wide backing by Canvas Studio, and this is called Butterfly Whisper. This does come in a variety of different colorways. This one is a white or a cream color backing, and then a background to it, and then the butterflies are done more in what I would say a sand or a taupe color. So not overly strong, but get a little bit of a design on the back, a good contrast to the front, which is all solids. So you can see the pantograph. The pantograph on this one is squared. We used this one last week when I did the quilt that was made all out of the men's fabric samples, men's suits fabric samples. This was the same pantograph, and there was one other I did it on last week as well. But this one, it adds in that diagonal effect that is in so many of the quilt blocks, but it's a square, but it's set on point, and so it stitches out on point. And I think I was going that way when it was done, so I'm not going to be able to follow it along this way, but it would work the same way. So it just comes in, it echoes the square, and then it goes around itself, and then it does the next square, and then moves on, and then the next row underneath it nests into where that point comes. So if it's set on point, you know, then you've got that hollow point here, and that's where the next row is coming to set in. Fabric or thread color, it might be a cream. I can't tell. No, I do think it's a white. It looks very white on the white Bella solid right there, and I should have wrote it down. I didn't write this one down. I was trying this week to do a good job of writing my thread color down, and most of them I did, and this one I didn't. But it does look white, and again, these fabrics, some are a little muted, but some are brighter. There is some white background on a couple of the blocks. You could have used gray. I don't know, I just feel like the tone of this quilt was a little brighter, so I like the white. You could have used a cream, but again, you know, some of these yellows are very bright. There's a very bright yellow star in the corner, and some of the white backgrounds. I like the white. I think the white was a good choice on this one. And again, you're not going to be wrong if you choose a cream. You're not going to be wrong if you choose a gray. It's your quilt, and so you can decide what you like. If you're doing your own long arm quilting, try different ones. It can give a different tone to the quilt. It might depend on who it's for. If this was maybe for a brother or a husband, maybe you'd want to go with a gray color just because that matches more of a man's style, perhaps. So it's really your choice. You're not going to go wrong with it. And some people like brighter colors. I tend to do more neutrals when I'm doing quilting. I don't tend to like a lot of colored thread on it, but I've done many client quilts when I've used clients that like color. They like colored thread, and so they want that on their quilt top. So again, this one is large, 84 by 96. I love this quilt. I think this would be a great one to work on, especially if you're just learning. Take it slow, do a little bit at a time, ask for help when you need help, but this is a great way to do a variety of blocks. You're not going to get bored because there's a little bit of everything in this one. So very, very pretty. All right, that's all I have for you this week, and I'm so glad you joined me today. If you are in need of long arm quilting services, then my information is down below, and I will be back next week because every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.